From the mythic halls of Mount Olympus to the mist-covered fields of Camelot, from the vast empire of Macedonia to the raging seas of ancient Greece, heroes have shaped our world in ways both real and legendary. But what makes a hero truly epic? Is it power, destiny, or the courage to face the impossible? Welcome to Epic History Stories, where we journey through time to uncover the greatest heroes of literature and history. Today, we tell the tales of Hercules, King Arthur, Alexander the Great, and Odysseus, for names that echo through eternity. What if your greatest gift was also your greatest curse? What if unimaginable strength came with pain, betrayal, and endless trials, all leading to one final test that would decide your fate among the gods? This is the story of Hercules, the son of Zeus, born immortal, destined for immortality. A tale of strength, madness, and redemption. A journey that proves true greatness is not found in power, but in perseverance. Story 1. The Rise of Hercules, from mortal to god. Long ago, in the age when gods still walked among men, Zeus, king of Olympus, looked down upon the mortal world. His gaze fell upon a woman of extraordinary virtue named Alcmene, wife of a noble warrior Amphitryon. Zeus, captivated by her beauty and strength of spirit, descended to earth in the guise of her husband. From that divine union was born a child, Hercules, whom we now call Hercules. But not everyone rejoiced. On Olympus, Zeus's queen, Hera, burned with jealousy. She vowed that this child, this reminder of her husband's unfaithfulness, would never know peace. Before the boy could even speak, Hera sent 2 great serpents to his cradle. But the infant Hercules awakened with a cry, reached out his small hands, and crushed the serpents with effortless strength. Even then, destiny had marked him as more than human. Hercules grew into a young man of extraordinary power. He could wrestle lions, lift boulders, and outrun horses. But he was not merely strong. He was noble, humble, and kind, beloved by his people. He trained with the best warriors in Greece, taught by the wise centaur Chiron. Under Chiron's guidance, Hercules learned the art of archery, music, and philosophy. But the gods had not forgotten him. Hera, ever watchful, whispered his fate, twisting joy into tragedy. In one dark night of divine madness, Hera clouded Hercules' mind. In his delirium, he turned his strength against those he loved most, his wife Megra and their children. When the fog lifted, he saw the ruin he had wrought. The mightiest man in Greece fell to his knees, broken. He sought forgiveness from the oracle of Delphi. And there, the voice of the god Apollo decreed, "To cleanse your soul, you must serve King Eurystheus and perform 12 impossible labors." Each labor was a punishment, but also a path to redemption. The first task: slay the Nemean lion, a beast with skin so tough no weapon could pierce it. For days, Hercules hunted it through forests and caves, until at last he trapped it and strangled it with his bare hands. He wore its pelt as armor, a symbol of strength that would follow him forever. The second labor: defeat the Lernaean Hydra, a serpent with many heads. And when one was cut off, 2 grew in its place. Hercules burned each neck with fire, preventing the heads from returning. The swamp where he fought it boiled with venom, and the air reeked of death. But he triumphed. The third labor took him to Artemis' sacred forest, where he captured the Ceryneian hind, a golden-horned deer faster than the wind. For a year he pursued it across mountains and rivers, a chase of endurance, not violence. The fourth, captured the Erymanthean boar, a creature so fierce it terrorized entire villages. Hercules drove it into deep snow, where its strength failed. The fifth, cleaned the Augean stables, home 1,000 cattle, unclean for 30 years. But Hercules was clever as well as strong. He rerouted 2 rivers to wash the filth away in a single day. And so, labor by labor, he began to rise, not just in power, but in wisdom. Each victory came at a cost. Though mortals praised him, Hercules was haunted by his past. He bore the guilt of his madness like a chain around his heart. Still, he pressed on. His 6th labor took him to the Stymphalian marshes to face a flock of deadly birds with bronze beaks. Using a rattle given by Athena, he startled them into flight and shot them down one by one. The 7th, he captured the raging bull of Crete, a beast sent by Poseidon himself. The 8th, he stole the man-eating Mars of Diomedes. The 9th, he claimed the belt of Hippolyta, the Amazon queen, through both diplomacy and battle. But it was the 10th labor, the cattle Algerian, that took him beyond the known world. He journeyed to the ends of the earth, where he raised 2 great pillars, the pillars of Hercules, marking the edge of the world as men knew it. The final 2 labors were tests not of strength, but of spirit. For the 11th, he sought the golden apples of the Hesperides, guarded by a 100-headed dragon. To succeed, Hercules had to trust Atlas, the Titan condemned to hold up the heavens. Atlas fetched the apples, but when he refused to take the sky back, Hercules tricked him, asking for help just long enough to place the burden again upon the Titan's shoulders. Cleverness triumphed where might could not. The 12th and final labor, to descend into the underworld itself and bring back Cerberus, the 3-headed guardian of Hades. Armed with courage and guided by Hermes, Hercules entered the realm of the dead. There he faced Cerberus, and by strength alone, without weapons, subdued the beast. When he returned to the world above, even the gods were silent. He had done the impossible. Freed from his labors, Hercules lived as a hero among men. But his trials were not over. He married Diana, a princess whose love was pure, but fate intervened again. A centaur named Nessus deceived her, giving her a cloak soaked in his poisoned blood, claiming it would ensure Hercules' love forever. When she gave it to him, the poison burned his flesh beyond healing. In agony, Hercules built his own funeral pyre upon Mount Ida. Flames rose around him, yet in that fire his mortal body was consumed and his divine essence ascended to Olympus. Zeus welcomed his son at last, and Hera, moved by his suffering, laid aside her hatred. Hercules was granted immortality, seated among the gods as a symbol of strength, redemption, and endurance. Hercules was no ordinary hero. He was not perfect, nor was he free from failure. But through pain and perseverance, he transcended both his humanity and his flaws. His story has endured for thousands of years, not just because he was strong, but because he was resilient. We all face our own labors. And like Hercules, we must find the strength to rise above them, to become something greater than we were yesterday. Story 2. The legendary origins of King Arthur. The sword and the stone. In a time before heroes, when kingdoms burned and faith was lost, a single sword waited in silence, buried in stone, bound by magic, until the day a boy with no crown would claim it and change destiny forever. This is the legendary origin of King Arthur, the boy who pulled the sword from the stone and became the greatest king Britain ever knew. Imagine a land without a king, a land torn by betrayal, war, and bloodshed. Hope was a myth, unity a dream, but prophecy whispered of a chosen one, a pure heart who would draw the sword that no man could move. That boy was Arthur. The legend of King Arthur begins in the dark ages of Britain, a time when might ruled over right, and the throne stood empty after the death of King Uther Pendragon. The land fell into chaos. Nobles fought for power, villages burned, and somewhere in the shadows, destiny was being shaped. Uther's trusted advisor, the wizard Merlin, foresaw this turmoil. To preserve the king's bloodline, he took Uther's newborn son, Arthur, and entrusted him to Sir Ector, a loyal knight, to raise in secret. No one knew the boy's royal lineage, not even Arthur himself. As years passed, Arthur grew up humble, kind, and brave, serving as a squire to his foster brother, Sir Kay. He dreamed not of crowns or glory, but of honor and duty. Meanwhile, the kingdom's despair deepened. Lords waged endless wars, and the people prayed for a savior. Then, one winter morning, a miracle appeared in London. In the courtyard of St. Paul's Cathedral stood a massive stone, and rising from it, a sword, its blade gleaming with divine light. An inscription on the hilt read, "Whoso pulleth out the sword of the stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all England." Word spread like wildfire. Noblemen, warriors, and knights from every corner of Britain came to try their luck. One by one they pulled, strained, and failed. The sword would not budge. It was not brute strength the stone demanded, but destiny. Months later, A grand tournament was held near London to determine who might be worthy of the throne. Sir Ector and his sons came to compete, but in the rush of preparation, Sir Kay realized he had forgotten his sword. Turning to his young squire, he barked, "Arthur, fetch me a sword, quickly." Arthur searched the camp in vain. Every knight's sword was locked away. Then, as he passed the churchyard, he saw it, a sword, gleaming in the morning light, standing alone in a stone. Thinking it unguarded, he stepped forward, wrapped his fingers around the hilt, and pulled. It slid out like a feather. He didn't feel the world shift beneath him, but it did. Arthur, unaware of the miracle, ran back to his brother and handed him the sword. When Sir Ector saw the blade, his eyes widened. "Where did you get this?" Arthur answered innocently, "From the stone in the churchyard." Realizing what happened, Ector led Arthur back to the cathedral. A crowd had gathered. When Arthur returned the sword to its place, it sank into the stone as if swallowed by the earth. The nobles jeered. "Let the boy try again," they shouted. Arthur took a deep breath and pulled. The blade rose again, effortlessly. A hush fell over the crowd. Some knelt in awe. Others refused to believe. They demanded more trials. Easter, Pentecost, Christmas. Each time Arthur drew the sword with ease. Until at last, the truth could no longer be denied. Before the altar, in that sacred moment, the boy became a king. The people cried, "Long live King Arthur." And the age of legends began. With Merlin as his guide, Arthur united the divided land. He called upon brave knights, Lancelot, Gawain, Percival, and built the legendary Round Table, where every man was equal and every voice was heard. From Camelot, Arthur ruled with wisdom and courage. For a brief golden age, peace reigned across Britain. But legends always carry shadows. Betrayal and tragedy would one day tear the kingdom apart. But that is a story for another time. For now, remember this. Arthur's greatness was not in the sword he pulled, but in the heart that guided his hand. The sword in the stone is more than a legend. It's a mirror for every dreamer. It reminds us that true power lies not in birth or status, but in character. That destiny finds those who act with courage, humility, and faith. Arthur was never meant to be the strongest. He was meant to be the truest. And that's what made him king. If you enjoyed this journey into the legend of King Arthur, don't hesitate. Hit that subscribe button and join us for more epic tales from history and myth. Months later, a grand tournament was held near London to determine who might be worthy of the throne. Sir Ector and his sons came to compete, but in the rush of preparation, Sir Kay realized he had forgotten his sword. Turning to his young squire, he barked, "Arthur, fetch me a sword, quickly." Arthur searched the camp in vain. Every knight's sword was locked away. Then, as he passed the churchyard, he saw it, a sword, gleaming in the morning light, standing alone in a stone. Thinking it unguarded, he stepped forward, wrapped his fingers around the hilt, and pulled. It slid out like a feather. He didn't feel the world shift beneath him, but it did. Arthur, unaware of the miracle, ran back to his brother and handed him the sword. When Sir Ector saw the blade, his eyes widened. "Where did you get this?" Arthur answered innocently, "From the stone in the churchyard." Realizing what happened, Ector led Arthur back to the cathedral. A crowd had gathered. When Arthur returned the sword to its place, it sank into the stone as if swallowed by the earth. The nobles jeered. "Let the boy try again," they shouted. Arthur took a deep breath and pulled. The blade rose again, effortlessly. A hush fell over the crowd. Some knelt in awe. Others refused to believe. They demanded more trials. Easter, Pentecost, Christmas. Each time Arthur drew the sword with ease. Until at last, the truth could no longer be denied. Before the altar, in that sacred moment, the boy became a king. The people cried, "Long live King Arthur." And the age of legends began. With Merlin as his guide, Arthur united the divided land. He called upon brave knights, Lancelot, Gawain, Percival, and built the legendary Round Table, where every man was equal and every voice was heard. From Camelot, Arthur ruled with wisdom and courage. For a brief golden age, peace reigned across Britain. But legends always carry shadows. Betrayal and tragedy would one day tear the kingdom apart. But that is a story for another time. For now, remember this. Arthur's greatness was not in the sword he pulled, but in the heart that guided his hand. The sword and the stone is more than a legend. It's a mirror for every dreamer. It reminds us that true power lies not in birth or status, but in character. That destiny finds those who act with courage, humility, and faith. Arthur was never meant to be the strongest. He was meant to be the truest. And that's what made him king. If you enjoyed this journey into the legend of King Arthur, don't hesitate. Hit that subscribe button and join us for more epic tales from history and myth. Story 3. Alexander the Great. Conqueror, legend, and the making of an empire. By the time he was 30, he had conquered the known world. But his greatest battle wasn't fought on the battlefield. It was against time, ambition, and destiny itself. This is the story of Alexander the Great, the boy who became a god, the conqueror who dreamed of uniting the world, and the legend whose empire still echoes through history. Imagine being told from birth that you were destined for greatness, that the blood of gods ran through your veins. For Alexander of Macedon, that wasn't a fantasy. It was his reality. Born in 356 BCE, in the northern kingdom of Macedonia, Alexander's life was shaped by power, prophecy, and peril. His father, King Philip II, was a master strategist and warrior who united the Greek city-states under his rule. His mother, Olympias, filled his mind with divine dreams, telling him he was descended from Achilles himself. As a boy, Alexander tamed the wild stallion Bucephalus, a horse no one else could control. Even then, people whispered, the gods favor this child. While other princes learned to wield the sword, Alexander studied philosophy and science. His teacher? The great Aristotle. Under his guidance, Alexander learned about ethics, logic, politics, and the vast world beyond Greece, Persia, India, and lands unknown. These lessons planted a vision, not just to conquer, but to connect civilizations through knowledge and culture. But destiny arrived sooner than expected. In 336 BCE, tragedy struck. King Philip II was assassinated. The young Alexander, only 20, was suddenly king. Enemies surrounded him. Rebels inside Greece, rivals in the Persian Empire, and conspirators at home. Yet, Alexander moved swiftly. In a matter of months, he crushed rebellions, re-established Greek unity, and began planning the impossible, the conquest of Persia, the greatest empire on earth. In 334 BCE, Alexander led an army of 40,000 men across the Hellespont into Asia Minor, declaring, I leave the lands of Greece to the limits of the world. His first great test came at the Battle of the Granicus River, where he faced Persian satraps. Against overwhelming odds, he charged headlong into battle, nearly losing his life, but victory was his. Next came Issus in 333 BCE. Alexander faced King Darius III and his massive army. Darius fled the battlefield, leaving behind his family, a humiliation that shook the Persian throne. To Alexander, this wasn't just war, it was destiny unfolding. He treated Darius's captured family with honor, earning respect even from his enemies. His charisma and vision inspired loyalty. He wasn't just conquering lands, he was winning hearts. By 332 BCE, he turned toward Egypt. The people there, weary of Persian rule, welcomed him as a liberator. In the desert, he founded a city that would bear his name for millennia, Alexandria. There, he visited the oracle of Ammonius at Siwa. The priest greeted him as son of Zeus. From that day on, Alexander believed his destiny was divine. Alexander's march eastward continued. In 331 BCE, he met Darius once more at the Battle of Gaugamela. It was one of the most decisive battles in ancient history. The Persians outnumbered him 5-1. But Alexander's tactics, the famed oblique formation, shattered their lines. Darius fled again, and this time his empire crumbled. At just 25, Alexander ruled from Greece to Egypt to Persia. But his hunger for glory was insatiable. He set his sights on the mysterious lands of the East, India. In 326 BCE, He faced King Porus on the banks of the Hydaspes River. Porus' war elephants towered over the Macedonian army, but Alexander's strategy prevailed. When Porus was brought before him in defeat, Alexander asked, "How should I treat you?" Porus replied, "Like a king." Alexander smiled and said, "So be it." He reinstated Porus as ruler, a gesture that showed the conqueror's respect for valor. But even victory has limits. After years of endless campaigns, Alexander's weary soldiers, longing for home, refused to march farther east. Reluctantly, he turned back toward Babylon. In 323 BCE, just as Alexander began planning new conquests, he fell ill in Babylon. Fever struck. Within days, the world's greatest conqueror, only 32 years old, was dead. His generals gathered, stunned. When asked who should inherit his empire, Alexander's final word was said to be, "To the strongest." His death left no heir strong enough to unite his vast kingdom. His generals, the Diadochi, carved it into pieces, yet his vision endured. Greek culture, language, and ideas spread across continents, blending with Persian, Egyptian, and Indian traditions, creating the Hellenistic world. Cities he founded became centers of learning, science, and art for centuries. Alexander's story isn't just about conquest. It's about vision, leadership, and legacy. He dreamed of a world connected by culture rather than divided by war. And though his empire didn't last, his influence reshaped civilization itself. He reminds us that greatness isn't measured by how much you conquer, but by how far your ideas travel. From the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of India, Alexander's legend still whispers through time, a story of ambition, brilliance, and the limits of power. Which moment from Alexander's journey inspired you most? Tell us in the comments below. And if you love epic tales like this, don't hesitate. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and join us for more timeless stories from epic history stories. Chapter 4. The Odyssey of Odysseus, a hero's journey across gods and monsters. 10 years of war and another 10 years of wandering. One man, caught between the will of gods and the call of home. His name was Odysseus, king of Ithaca, the man who dared outwit gods, defy monsters, and conquer fate itself. But what does it take to journey across the unknown and return not as the same man who left? Welcome to Epic History Stories, where we bring to life the greatest legends ever told. Today, we sail with Odysseus, the cunning hero of Homer's Odyssey. His journey is not just a tale of myth and monsters, but a mirror of the human soul, of endurance, temptation, and the will to never give up. Our story begins at the end of another, the Trojan War. Troy has fallen. The Greeks have won, and Odysseus, the mastermind behind the Trojan horse, finally sets sail for home, or so he thinks. With his fleet bound to Ithaca, Odysseus believed the gods had granted him peace. But peace is never simple when you anger Poseidon, god of the sea. You see, during the Trojan War, Odysseus had grown proud. He mocked the gods, claiming man's what was greater than divine power. Poseidon heard and swore vengeance. From that moment, the sea itself became his enemy. The first stop? The land of the Lotus Eaters, a paradise of forgetfulness, where his men tasted fruit that erased all desire to return home. It was the first test of will over comfort. Odysseus dragged them back to the ship by force, knowing that paradise without purpose is no paradise at all. But the true nightmare began when they landed on an island ruled by a creature unlike any other, the Cyclops Polyphemus, a one-eyed giant and the son of Poseidon himself. Trapped in his cave, Odysseus watched as the monster devoured his men. Yet even in terror, his mind remained sharp. He offered the Cyclops wine, claiming his name was nobody. When the giant fell into drunken sleep, Odysseus struck, driving a sharpened stake into the creature's single eye. Polyphemus roared, "Nobody has blinded me." And the other Cyclopes ignored his cries. It was brilliant. It was daring. But it was also fatal. As they escaped the sea, Odysseus couldn't resist shouting his real name, declaring himself the one who blinded Polyphemus. That pride sealed his fate. Poseidon now knew the name of the man he would curse forever. From there, Odysseus' journey became a chain of divine trials. He visited Ilus, keeper of the winds, who gifted him a bag containing every wind of the world, except the one that would take him home. But curiosity is a curse. His men, thinking it filled with treasure, opened it. The winds burst free, hurling them back into chaos. They faced cannibalistic giants, the Laestrygonians, whose stones sank all but one ship. Only Odysseus survived with his crew. Then came the island of Ade, home to Circe, the sorceress. She turned his men into pigs with a wave of her wand. But Odysseus, protected by a charm from the god Hermes, forced her to undo her spell. For a year he stayed with her, not trapped by force, but by comfort. Only when his heart ached for home did he finally leave. But the next journey took him deeper, to the underworld itself. Guided by Circe's instructions, Odysseus crossed the river Styx to meet the blind prophet Tiresias. In that shadowed land, he saw the spirits of fallen heroes. Achilles, who said, "I would rather be a servant on earth than a king among the dead." He saw his own mother, who had died of grief. Tears fell, but his resolve hardened. He must return to Ithaca, no matter the cost. Returning to the world of the living, Odysseus sailed past dangers few could imagine. The sirens, beautiful voices calling sailors to their doom. He had his men plug their ears with wax and tie him to the mast so he could hear their song without succumbing. He faced Scylla, the six-headed monster who devoured men from passing ships, and Charybdis, a deadly whirlpool that swallowed entire fleets. He chose a lesser evil, losing 6 men instead of all. Each choice was sacrifice. Each decision, a step closer to home and a step deeper into loss. Then came the island of the sun god Helios. His men, starving, slaughtered the sacred cattle despite Odysseus' warning. The god struck, lightning destroying their ship, leaving Odysseus adrift, alone. Days later, he washed ashore on the island of Calypso, a nymph who loved him. She offered him immortality if he stayed. But even eternity is meaningless without home. For 7 years, he gazed at the horizon, dreaming of Ithaca. Finally, the gods took pity. Zeus commanded Calypso to let him go. With a raft of wood and hope, Odysseus set sail once again. Poseidon struck one final time, smashing his raft to pieces. But fate, not fury, carried him to the shores of Phaeacia, where he told his story to a kind king who finally helped him return home. After 20 years, he stepped once more on Ithaca's soil. But home was no longer safe. Suitors had overrun his palace, courting his wife Penelope, devouring his wealth. In disguise as a beggar, Odysseus tested those who remained loyal, his servants, his son Telemachus, his queen. Then came the final test, an archery contest. No man could string Odysseus' great bow, but the beggar did effortlessly. Revealing himself at last, he unleashed vengeance. Arrows flew. Justice was swift. The long journey had ended in blood and triumph. Odysseus was home, not as a proud hero who left, but as a man tempered by suffering and wisdom. The Odyssey isn't just a tale of adventure. It's the story of every soul that's ever longed for home. It teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the will to keep moving forward despite it. That wisdom is born through trials, and that no matter how far we drift, home, whatever it means to us, is worth fighting for. Odysseus' journey reminds us that every storm, every struggle, every delay has its purpose. If this story moved you, don't hesitate. Subscribe to Epic History Stories for more timeless tales of courage, legend, and destiny. And tell us in the comments, which part of Odysseus' journey speaks most to you, his cunning, his endurance, or his love for home? Legends like Hercules remind us that history is more than dates and names. It is a story of courage, sacrifice, and the human spirit tested by fate. Here on Epic History Stories, we bring these legends to life, journeying through myth and history to uncover the heroes who shaped our world. If you're drawn to tales of gods and kings, warriors and conquerors, of triumph born from struggle and greatness forged in fire, then this is your place. Subscribe to Epic History Stories and step with us into the past, where every legend has a story, and every story is epic.